Sorry, I just wanted to say, first of all, this week for us, there's three things that we want to be focusing on. First, on Sky City. Obviously, the legislation is coming through this week. We want to be on fighting that. Secondly, on solid energy. We want to know where the money is coming from to bail out solid energy. It looks like it's coming from the Future Investment Fund. And thirdly, on the price of electricity. We will be running a campaign on that, which we'll be releasing details on later this week. In addition to that, in the last few days in regard to the Labour Party selection process, I've had a talk with the Labour Party leadership. I've asked them to withdraw the women-only selection panel. That has been done, and we will be working together to ensure that we get women well represented in Parliament, up to 50%, but that we work together to ensure that happens in a way that doesn't distract us from the issues that we want to get out on the table right now. Those issues being the ones that I've just been talking about: power prices, jobs, and obviously the affordability of homes.
How did we ever get to that point?
Had to do that?
Well, we went back to them. We have a democratic process in our party. Things are allowed to come up. The distraction, however, is just turning our attention away from the issues that most New Zealanders are concerned about. They don't want to know about what's happening within the Labour Party. What they want to know is what we're doing on the issues that affect them.
But won't that be seen as anti-democratic though? I mean, this was agreement put up, it was agreed that it would go to the conference, and now on your say-so it's been withdrawn?
Well, I've asked the party that. I've pointed out to them that this does not help how people feel about Labour. What they want from us is for us to be supporting them, the issues that they face, and that's around about power prices, home ownership, and good jobs that'll stop their kids going to Australia.
As the leader of the Labour Party, why do you think you weren't informed before it got to this stage? Would you have expected to have been informed?
Well, there was some discussion around these issues. Unfortunately, I wasn't at the meeting that finally decided on these recommendations. And remember, they are recommendations to go through to our conference.
Wouldn't it have helped, though, if you had been informed?
Well, obviously, if it had been, we had a bit more time to look at it, it might have been better. But on the basis of that, unfortunately, I was not at the meeting when it was finally decided that these recommendations, and I stress the word recommendations, go forward. And as a result of that, it came out as it did.
Is this frustrating though, because it's the very time that Labour needs unity?
Well, it's not so much about the problem of that. It's really the problem of making sure that we're talking about the issues that affect people. But right now, we've had thousands of people come onto our Facebook pages to talk about electricity prices, people's electricity prices going through the roof. Now, we want to be talking about that and not what's going on inside of the Labour Party. And as a result of that, we're putting this part of our selection discussion to one side and moving on the issues that we really want to move on.
But isn't one of the issues that affect people is the fact that women lag behind in pay rates, lag behind in any status in terms of positions on boards, etc. And this could have been a signal that Labour took that seriously.
Well, this is a commitment. We have a commitment to set the target for 2014 of having 45% women in our caucus. That's what we're committed to. That's what we'll continue to be committed to. I believe we're very close to achieving that. We're at about 42% now anyway. So we're not shying away in any form from the commitment to get to that target. What we are looking at is the way we're able to achieve that. It's simple as that.
Why did you let it get to this point?
Well, as I say, there was discussions around this issue. We're a democratic party, and we allow discussions like this to go ahead. Unfortunately, as I say, I wasn't at the meeting when it was finally discussed.
You knew about it because it's been around since the conference, at least last year. You obviously get paperwork. Why didn't you do something about it instead of this embarrassing you two?
Well, as I say, I think what we're doing here is listening to people out in New Zealand about what they're concerned about. This is not something they're concerned about. The letters I've received from people, ordinary New Zealanders, but also Labour Party members, is that, look, we're not so interested in this. What we are interested in is affordable housing and electricity prices.
Is this damaging to your leadership?
No.
Why do you say that?
Because I don't believe it is.
Are you saying you're happy for it to have got out there so that you could have had the discussion? Is that what you're saying?
No, what I'm saying is that the point to which we got here was about how do we increase the involvement of women in our party. And this was a mechanism to achieve that.
So
now,
you were happy for it to be out there?
I wanted to make sure that we discussed, as we do in a democratic party, this is a democratic party where we encourage open discussion, that we have the 45% and ultimately 50% women membership in our caucus. I want to see talented women that reflect society in our caucus. That's where I want to be.
So why have you shut it down now?
No, we have not shied away from that goal. That goal is still there. It's just simply around the mechanism to achieve that.
How can you say you're a democratic party if the leader can just get something taken off the agenda for the party's conference like that?
Well, as I'm saying, the aim of what we're trying to do here is very clear. We've not in any way deviated from that. We want to try and make sure that we have 45% women in our caucus in 2014. I think we're very close to achieving that.
My question was about how can it be democratic if the leader can get something taken off the agenda?
Well, ultimately, this is about conference and recommendations. Conferences discuss this further, and it's about recommendations in terms of what they ultimately decide on.
This is about an embarrassment for the party, though, isn't it? That's what we're talking about here. You were embarrassed by it.
Well, what I'm saying is that right now we have been distracted from what New Zealanders would want us to be going out there and back them on, and instead we're talking about issues within the party. That's become the dominant conversation. I don't want that to be the case. I joined the Labour Party to make a difference to people's lives. That's the most important thing for me. And so I want to be talking about the affordable homes, bringing down the power prices and creating jobs for people.
Did you talk to senior female members of the caucus before making this decision?
Look, I've had a wide-ranging number of conversations over the last couple of days. I don't want to go through who they were, but obviously, yes, I've been talking to a large number of people.
What did you think of this idea? When did you first hear of this proposal?
Well, the proposal's been floating around for some time, but
and what did you personally think?
Oh, personally,
when you first heard it?
Well, as I've said, I didn't favour that particular mechanism of going forward.
So why didn't you do something about it then?
Well, as I say, we have a democratic party here. I mean, I don't go running in and shut things down.
But that's what you've done. That's what you've done.
But it's important to say that the distraction that we've had over the last few days has moved us away from the issues that we've been wanting to talk about and to back New Zealanders up on.
And that is about. It looks disorganised.
Well, as I'm saying, I spoke to the party president yesterday and to members, other senior members. We agreed that it would be better to take this particular proposition off the table.
And has the quota system for the list, have you taken that off the table?
What we're doing is setting targets, and we're working on how we get up to those targets.
So the quota system is gone as well, or just the man?
Well, we're talking about setting targets for.
So just to be clear, the man ban's gone, and is the quota system gone as well?
The issue around that is an agreement to set targets, and we'll work out exactly how that is formulated in the future. Will be seen in the next few weeks.
No quotas?
What I'm saying is, we are working on that, and until we get a formulation of words, I can come back to you.
It'll no longer be a requirement for the knitting committee, if you like, to put the list together with that in mind. Is that what you're saying?
No, well, what I'm saying is that what we will what we will have is a selection criteria that will include the target of 45% women by 2014, and I'm very proud to stand up for that.
How is that different from the proposal?
Well, as I say, we're working with the party on how those targets get put up. It's really about the targets and not so much about the mechanism.
So it's a resolution that's embarrassed you, not the object of the resolution.
No, as I've said always that...
But you've canned the resolution, but you haven't canned the idea.
Well, I've said that I've always supported 45% women moving to 50% women in our party, representing our party, high quality women, because I believe that's the right thing to do. 100 years after the vote, I believe that we should have a parliament which should reflect New Zealand society, and that's where I feel we've got to.
How on earth did you let this get so far?
I think I've answered all those questions now. So, are there any other questions on
GCSB? GCSB. The government says, by the sounds of things, that they'll have a review written into the law. Now, surely that's enough for you, that they'll review all the security services?
No, what we want is the review before the law rather than afterwards. I mean, it's not good enough to simply say, we'll rush through this law, and if it's broken, we'll fix it up in 3 or 4 years' time. I mean, that doesn't make any sense. What we want to try and do is to make sure that we have good law now off the back of a review.
So it's a bottom line for Labor to have the inquiry before.
Well, this has always been our position. We've been saying this since the end of last year, that what we would like to have is a review.
John Key is talking about in 2015, which is sort of only 18 months away. Would that be good enough for you?
Yeah, but John Key may not be in power in 18 months from now. We will have a review if we have a Labor-led government. If we don't have one now, what I would like to see is a review done to justify why this law has to go forward. At the moment, both from the submitters, the absence of the SIS, the police and the military about why they need the GCSB to actually act on their behalf, none of that justification is being given. Yet we are expanding the role of the GCSB extensively as a result of this bill, and right now I haven't seen any justification.
Are you saying we don't need the GCSB?
No, of course not.
Well, why is it important to us, the GCSB?
Well, for the obvious reasons, but what I'm saying is that
what are the obvious reasons?
the expansion of the GCSB is what I'm talking about. If it's expanded to spy on New Zealanders, to look into what it calls information infrastructure, there's a whole range of different issues which I believe have meant that the confidence that the public has in GCSB has been undermined.
Had you, John Keach suggested earlier this morning that you might have talked to your previous Labor leadership about this, Helen Clark and the previous administration. Have you spoken to them about, given they put in the 2003 GCSB law, have you spoken to anybody from that leadership about this?
Yeah, of course I've spoken to Phil Goff and Annie King, and they believe that what we should be doing is having a review first, and many of the very senior security people that I've spoken to have also agreed to that as well.
What about Helen Clark?
No, I haven't mentioned it specifically with her. It's been in sort of a passing. But
what sort of senior security people have you been speaking to?
Well, people. Look, I don't want to mention any names, but I can tell you that there is a groundswell of support for a broad and independent inquiry. We've got a lot of accusations about where our information is going to from New Zealand, swirling around at the moment. We have an expansion of GCSB's powers to enable spying on New Zealanders by the GCSB. When you go through the legislation, there's a whole raft of provisions there that expands the role of GCSB, and we don't want to see that.
So Labor's position is that it will not vote for the legislation unless there is an independent inquiry beforehand.
We've always maintained that, and up to now I haven't seen any reason or justification why we should change our position.
So you're non-negotiable on that point?
Well, it's not about non-negotiable. I mean, there hasn't been any negotiations. I mean, John Key's standing up in a stand-up and saying, you know, I mean, it would be nice if Labor came on board. I mean, look, I'm sure he's got my phone number. He's got Ian Fletcher's phone number. He's surely got my phone number as well, and he can just give me a call.
So you're open to negotiation?
I'm open to talk about it. Of course we are.
So it's not a hard and fast thing to review before.
Well, maybe John Key would agree to a wide independent inquiry.
So are you saying now it's not a hard and fast thing? It's open to negotiation.
No,
That's what you just said.
Look, what I'm saying is I'm always happy to listen to talk, but how those negotiations go forward is very much how those discussions pan out. But what I'm not going to do is to put on bottom lines or wherever I am today, because right now there is no negotiation. I haven't had an approach. There is no changes that I know of. I haven't been informed of any changes that have happened to GCSB.
But an approach could come. So the reality is that the independent inquiry is not a bottom line for the Labor Party.
No, I'm not saying that at all. I mean, I've always maintained that the legislation should follow from an independent inquiry. That's always been.
So you're non-negotiable on that.
Well, I'm not going to talk about.
You just said. Look,
well,
I am contradicting yourself. That's the problem.
I'm not contradicting myself. I said I'm open to listen to what the Prime Minister has to say, but I've always maintained that the legislation should follow an independent inquiry.
So if he is not going to have the independent inquiry, he shouldn't bother calling.
Look, if he wants to call, he can call, okay?
But that's a fair question. If you're
Well, I'm not going to negotiate or talk about what our negotiation position, if there ever is one, now, okay?
Is he making progress with this idea of extra oversight to back that?
Look, he's tinkering around to get this across the line in front of Peter Dunn. That's the bottom line, and that's all there is to it.
This idea of a 5-year review, though, and potentially one in 2015, surely that gives the public a lot more confidence about the GCSB if they know that governments, whoever they are, can't tinker with this. There has to be a review. That's a good thing, isn't it?
Look, we've always said that a review is a good thing. That's what we should be starting with. We could have had one and it could have been over with by the beginning of this year, and we could have actually had legislation built on the basis of a review. The bottom line is in Australia, every 5 or 7 years they have a review. That should be automatic. That would be one of the issues that I would expect.
He's offering that.
He's offering that.
So that's good. But I mean, that doesn't go nearly far enough for having... It's very easy for a Prime Minister to offer those sorts of... make those sort of promises when he's not sure that he's even going to be in power at that time. Cheers, thanks.